The colony ship Aurora drifted slowly through space, its massive hull gleaming under the distant stars. Inside the ship, 50,000 humans lived and worked as they traveled to their new home on a planet far from Earth. Captain Jake Harrison stood on the bridge, watching the lights of Nexus Prime grow larger through the main window. The trading station looked like a small city floating in the darkness of space. "We should reach the docking port in 2 hours," said Commander Lisa Brooks, walking up beside him. She was in charge of the military ships that protected the Aurora. During their long journey, "The crew is ready to start loading supplies." Jake nodded and smiled. "Good. The children have been asking when they can see the aliens again. Last time we stopped at a station, they talked about it for weeks." The Aurora was not just a ship full of adults. Families had come together to make this journey to a new world. 8,000 children lived on the ship, from tiny babies to teenagers who were almost adults themselves. They went to school, played games, and dreamed about the planet that would be their new home. Down in Section C of the ship, 12 children had just finished their afternoon classes. 10-year-old Danny Kim packed his books into his bag while his friend Amy Johnson, who was 12, waited by the door. "Come on, Danny," Amy said. "Chris wants to show us something cool near the docking bay." Chris Martinez was 14 and always knew about interesting places on the ship. He had short brown hair and was taller than most kids his age. The other children liked following him around because he always found fun things to do. "What did he find this time?" asked Danny. He was small for his age and very quiet, but he trusted Chris and Amy completely. "He said there are windows where we can watch the aliens loading their ships," Amy explained. "But we have to hurry before the teachers notice we are gone." The group of 12 children walked through the long hallways of the Aurora. The ship was so big that it took 20 minutes to walk from one end to the other. They passed shops, restaurants, and homes where families lived. Everything looked normal and safe, just like a small town back on Earth. When they reached the docking area, Chris led them to a section they had never seen before. "Look," he whispered, pointing to a large window. "You can see everything from here." Through the window, they could see the huge trading station. Strange ships with weird shapes were attached to different parts of the station. Aliens walked around in special suits, moving boxes and talking to each other. The children pressed their faces against the glass, amazed by everything they saw. "I want to see them up close," said Amy. "Do you think we could go outside for just a minute?" Chris looked around and saw a door with alien writing on it. "Maybe we can get a better look from over there," he said. "Just for a second." The children did not know that the door led to a section of the station that belonged to the Vorthek Collective. The Vortheks were a race of tall, gray aliens with 4 arms and no hair. They were known throughout the galaxy for being very strict about their rules and their territory. One by one, the children slipped through the door. They found themselves in a hallway that looked very different from their ship. The walls were dark metal, and strange symbols glowed with blue light. Everything smelled different, like metal and something sharp that made their noses wrinkle. "This place is weird," whispered Danny, staying close to Amy. "Look at this," called out Chris from up ahead. He was standing in front of a tall crystal structure that seemed to glow from inside. It was beautiful, with patterns that moved and changed like water. "What do you think it is?" The other children gathered around the crystal. It was mounted on a stand made of the same dark metal as the walls. None of them could read the alien writing below it, so they did not know it was a sacred object that the Vortheks used in their most important ceremonies. "It is so pretty," said Amy, reaching out to touch it. "Maybe we should not touch anything," Danny said quietly. He had a bad feeling about being in this place, but it was too late. As Amy reached toward the crystal, her foot caught on something as she stumbled forward. Her hand hit the crystal structure, and there was a loud cracking sound. Part of the crystal broke off and fell to the floor with a crash that echoed through the hallway. All 12 children froze. They stared at the broken pieces on the floor, and their faces turned white with fear. "We need to leave right now," Chris said, his voice shaking. But before they could move, heavy footsteps came from both directions. Vorthik security guards appeared, wearing black armor and carrying strange weapons. Their gray faces showed no expression, but their forearms moved quickly as they surrounded the children. "You have damaged sacred property," one of the guards said in perfect English. His voice was deep and cold. "You are under arrest." "It was an accident," Amy cried. "We did not mean to break anything. We are sorry." The guard did not seem to care. "Intention does not matter under Vorthik law. Damage has been done. You will come with us." "We are just children," Chris said, trying to sound brave. "Our parents do not even know where we are. Can you please just let us go back to our ship?" "Age does not matter under Vorthik law," the guard replied. "Crime is crime." The children were taken to a holding area on the station. Captain Jake Harrison was called immediately, and he rushed to the Vorthik section with Commander Lisa Brooks and the ship's diplomatic team. But when they tried to negotiate, they met Ambassador Kelter, a tall Vorthik with scars on his gray face. "Your children have committed a serious crime," Kelter said. "They have damaged a ceremonial artifact that is over 1,000 years old. Under our law, they must serve 20 years of labor imprisonment." "They are children," Jake said, trying to stay calm. "The oldest is only 14. They made a mistake, but they meant no harm." "We do not recognize the concept of childhood in our legal system," Kelter replied. "All individuals who can walk, can think, are responsible for their actions. For 3 days, the humans tried everything. They offered to pay for the damage, to replace the artifact, to provide community service. But the Vorthiks would not change their decision. The children were loaded onto a prison transport ship and taken away to a place far from their families. As the Aurora watched the prison ship disappear into space, nobody knew that this moment would change everything. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you took human children away from their families. The news traveled fast through the galaxy. Within days, every major species knew about the 12 human children who were now prisoners on a Vorthik prison moon. Captain Jake Harrison sent messages to every government and organization he could. Think of begging for help. But most of the responses were not what he wanted to hear. The Galactic Council was a group of the oldest and most powerful alien races in the galaxy. They made the big decisions that affected everyone. When the human ambassador brought the case to them, the council members barely looked up from their datapads. "This is a matter between humans and Vorthiks," said council leader Vex High, a tall being with blue skin and 6 eyes. "The council does not interfere in legal disputes between member species. But they are children," the human ambassador said. "Innocent children who made a simple mistake. The Vorthik legal system is recognized by this council," another member replied. "If humans cannot control their offspring, that is not our concern." The ambassador left the council chambers, feeling angry and helpless. It seemed like nobody in the galaxy cared about 12 human children. But the ambassador was wrong. Some people did care, and the news was reaching them too. On the peaceful world of Zelara, Dr. Silana felt a sharp pain in her chest. The Zelani were known throughout the galaxy for their ability to feel the emotions of others, even across great distances. She was working in her garden when the wave of fear and sadness hit her like a physical blow. "The human children," she whispered to herself, pressing her hand to her heart. She could feel their terror and confusion as clearly as if they were standing next to her. Dr. Silona remembered Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the human scientist who had saved her entire colony from a deadly plague 3 years ago. Elena had worked day and night, refusing to sleep until she found a cure. Thousands of Zelani children were alive because of that brave human woman. "I cannot ignore this," Silana said to her assistant. "Send a message to our government. Tell them we must help the humans." Across the galaxy, on a massive hive ship, the insect-like Kythera were having their own discussions. The Kythera were the galaxy's information brokers. They knew secrets about every species, every government, and every major event. Their hive mind allowed them to process information faster than any computer. Worker Scout Zixtel brought news to the Hive Queen about the human children. But this was not just any news report. Zixtel had personal experience with humans. "Queen Mother," Zixtel said, "I remember the human called Pete Collins. When our ship was damaged in the asteroid field, he worked for 40 hours straight to repair our engines. He saved 3,000 of our people." The Hive Queen's antennae twitched as she processed this information. "What do you know about this case?" "I have been investigating," Zixtel replied. "The Vorthix do this on purpose. They allow incidents to happen, then use harsh punishments to scare other species. They have done it to the Centauri, the Aldebarians, and 6 other races in the past 50 years. "Show me the evidence," the Queen commanded. Within hours, Zixtel had compiled a detailed report. The evidence was clear. The Vorthix had a pattern of trapping members of newer species, then using their strict laws to demand tribute or force unfavorable trade agreements. The damaged artifact was kept in an area that was easy to access but poorly marked. They wanted accidents to happen. "Release this information to all major news networks," the Queen decided. "The galaxy must know the truth." On the edge of known space, the Wanderer clans received the news in their own way. The Wanderers were nomads who traveled from system to system, never staying in one place for long. They valued freedom above everything else, and the idea of children. Being imprisoned made them angry. Captain Torvan of the Wanderer ship Stormrider had traded with humans many times. He especially remembered Ryan Blake, a human merchant who had once shared his food and water when Torvan's ship was stranded. That act of kindness had meant the difference between life and death for Torvan's crew. "The humans showed us mercy when we needed it," Torvan told his clan leaders. "Now their young ones need our help." The Wanderer clans began to move through space, gathering near Vorthic territory. They did not make any threats, but their presence sent a clear message. The Wanderers had ships, weapons, and most importantly, they knew how to disappear and strike without warning. Even the normally quiet Saurian Empire began to take notice. The reptilian Saurians were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They rarely got involved in other people's problems. But they had rules about how civilized species should behave. Emperor Coldith called his advisors to an emergency meeting. "Explain to me," he said in his deep, rumbling voice, "why the Vorthix refused to honor diplomatic immunity protocols. Every civilized species recognizes that accidental damage by minors should be handled through diplomatic channels." "The Vorthix claim their laws are absolute," one advisor replied. "They say they make no exceptions." "Then they are not civilized," the Emperor said. "Send a formal protest to the Vorthic government. Tell them the Saurian Empire questions their fitness for galactic society." Back on the Aurora, Captain Jake Harrison watched the news reports with growing hope. Species that had never worked together before were all speaking up for human children. Dr. Elena Rodriguez came to his office with tears in her eyes. "Jake," she said, "I just got a message from Dr. Silona on Zelara. The entire Zelani government is demanding the children's release. They are threatening to cut all trade with the Vorthix. And the Kythera just released a report that makes the Vorthix look terrible," added Commander Lisa Brooks. It is all over the galactic news networks. Jake felt something he had not felt in weeks. Hope. Maybe we are not alone in this after all. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. 3 days later, a message arrived that made everyone on the Aurora stop what they were doing. It came from the Ethereal Collective, the most ancient and powerful species in the galaxy. The Ethereals almost never spoke to anyone. They were so advanced that most species thought of them as gods. The message was short and simple. The Ethereal Collective expresses deep concern for the treatment of sapient younglings. This matter requires immediate resolution. When the most powerful beings in the galaxy said something needed to be fixed, everyone listened. Suddenly, species that had ignored human pleas were sending messages of support. The Vorthix found themselves facing something they had never expected. They were alone, and the rest of the galaxy was angry. 6 months had passed since the children were taken away. Captain Jake Harrison stood in his office looking at pictures of the 12 young faces. Every day felt like a year. Every night, he wondered if the children were safe, if they were being fed, if they were still alive. Dr. Elena Rodriguez came into his office carrying a datapad. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. "Jake, we just received a smuggled report from the prison moon. You need to see this." Jake took the datapad and read the report. His face grew angry as he read each line. The children were being forced to work in the prison mines for 12 hours every day. They were given only one small meal a day. Amy Johnson had become very sick with a fever that would not go away. Little Danny Kim had stopped talking completely and just stared at the walls. "This is not imprisonment," Jake said, his voice filled with rage. "This is torture." The worst news came 3 days later. The Vorthix announced they were moving the children to an even worse prison. The reason was that Chris Martinez had tried to organize a small protest among the prisoners. He had asked other inmates to refuse to work until the children received better treatment. "Maximum Security Facility," Commander Lisa Brooks read from the official Vorthix statement. "The human criminals have shown continued defiance and will be transferred immediately." Jake slammed his fist on his desk. "That is it. I do not care what it takes. We are getting those children back." But Jake was not the only one who was angry. Across the galaxy, the news of the transfer hit alien governments like a bomb. On Zalara, Dr. Silana collapsed when she felt the wave of despair from the children. The pain was so strong that Solani healers had to help her to her feet. She immediately called an emergency meeting of the Zalani High Council. "Honored counselors," she said, "I can feel their suffering growing stronger every day. If we do not act now, some of these children will die." The Zalani High Council had never interfered in another species' legal system before, but they could not ignore the emotional agony they felt from 12 innocent children. "Send an official message to the Vorthak government," ordered High Counselor Meltara. "Tell them the Zalani people formally condemn their treatment of sapient younglings. Cut all trade agreements immediately." The Kithera response was even stronger. Queen Mother Vashti ordered the release of every piece of evidence they had gathered about Vorthik crimes. The files showed decades of abuse, illegal imprisonment, and systematic torture of dozens of species. "Broadcast this information to every news network in the galaxy," the Queen commanded. "Let everyone see what the Vorthix really are." Within hours, the evidence was everywhere. The galactic public learned that the Vorthix had been using their legal system as a weapon for 50 years. They had imprisoned children from other species before, but had always kept it secret. Now everyone knew the truth. The Wanderer clans made the first military move. Captain Torvin sent a message to all human ships in the area. "We stand with you," the message said. "Our ships are ready to fight." But the biggest shock came from the Saurian Empire. Emperor Coldeth did something that had not happened in over 200 years. He ordered the Imperial fleet to leave Saurian space. The Vorthics have violated every principle of civilized behavior, the Emperor announced. The Saurian Empire will not allow children to be tortured while we do nothing. 40 massive Saurian warships began moving toward Vorthic territory. Each ship was the size of a small city and carried enough weapons to destroy a planet. The message was clear. The Saurians were done talking. Even species that had no connection to humans began to take sides. The aquatic Nautolans, who lived on water worlds and rarely cared about land-based politics, sent a formal protest. The crystalline silicates, who communicated only through light patterns, began flashing angry messages at any Vorthic ship they encountered. General Marcus Stone, the highest-ranking human military officer in the area, found himself coordinating with alien commanders he had never dreamed of working with. His office became a meeting place for the strangest alliance in galactic history. "General Stone," said Admiral Kethris of the Saurian fleet, "my ships are in position. We can reach the prison moon in 6 hours. My scouts have mapped the entire prison complex," added Captain Torvan through a communication screen. "We know exactly where the children are being held." Dr. Silona appeared on another screen, speaking for the Zelani. "Our empaths are ready. To help, we can guide your rescue teams directly to the children by following their emotional signatures. And we have disabled the Vorthic communication networks," reported Worker Scout Zixtel. "They will not be able to call for help during the rescue." General Stone looked around at all the alien faces on his screens. A year ago, most of these species barely knew humans existed. Now they were willing to risk war to save 12 human children. "Why?" he asked them. "Why are you all doing this for us?" Admiral Kethras answered first. "Because you showed us that children should be protected, not punished. This is what civilized beings do." Captain Torvin nodded. "Your people have shown kindness to our clans. Now we show kindness to your young ones." Dr. Silona spoke softly. "Because we can feel their pain, and it breaks our hearts. No child should suffer like this." Worker Scout Zixtel added, "Because the truth must be defended. The Vorthics have lied for too long." The Alliance spent 2 days planning the rescue. It was complicated because they had never worked together before. Zelani ships were built for peace and exploration. Wanderer vessels were fast but lightly armed. Saurian warships were incredibly powerful but moved slowly. Human ships were somewhere in between, but they found a way to make it work. The Wanderers would use their stealth technology to get close to the prison moon. The Zelani would guide them to the exact location of the children. The Saurians would provide the heavy firepower to break through the prison defenses. The humans would lead the actual rescue mission. On the 3rd day, General Stone received one final message. It came from the Ethereal Collective, and it was longer than their first message. "The Ethereal Collective has observed the formation of this alliance with great interest. It has been many centuries since we have seen such cooperation between species. You have our blessing for this rescue. The children must be returned to their families." General Stone smiled for the first time in months. "All right, everyone. Let us go get our kids back." The greatest rescue mission in galactic history was about to begin. The Vorthic government realized they had made a terrible mistake. Ambassador Kelter watched the news reports showing alien fleets moving toward their territory. He had never seen so many different species working together for one cause. "Sir," his aide said nervously, "the Saurian Empire has 40 warships positioned near our border. The Wanderer clans have surrounded 3 of our trade routes. Even the Nautolans are refusing to sell us water supplies." Kelter felt fear for the first time in his long career. The Vorthics had always used their harsh laws to control weaker species, but they had never faced an angry galaxy before. He sent an urgent message to Captain Jake Harrison. "We are willing to negotiate," the message said. "Perhaps we can find a solution that works for everyone." Jake read the message with Commander Lisa Brooks standing beside him. After 6 months of rejection, the Vorthics suddenly wanted to talk. "What do you think?" Lisa asked. "I think they are scared," Jake replied. "Good. They should be." The negotiations took place on a neutral space station. Ambassador Keltar arrived with a team of Vorthic lawyers and diplomats. Jake brought General Marcus Stone and representatives from all the allied species. "We are prepared to offer a compromise," Keltar began. "We will reduce the children's sentences to time already served. In exchange, humanity must formally apologize for the damage to our sacred artifact and pay full compensation." The room fell. Silent. Then Admiral Kethris of the Saurian Empire stood up. His massive reptilian form towered over the Vorthic ambassador. "You torture children for 6 months," the Admiral said in his deep voice, "and then you want an apology from their parents?" Dr. Silana spoke next, her voice filled with emotion. "I can feel those children's pain from here. One of them is so sick she can barely stand. Another has not spoken in weeks. You call this justice?" Captain Torvan slammed his fist on the table. "The Wanderer clans do not negotiate with child torturers." Jake stood up slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with anger. "Here are our terms," he said. "Immediate and unconditional release of all 12 children. Full medical treatment for any injuries or illness they have suffered. Reform of your legal system to include protections for children of all species. Accept these terms or face the consequences." Keltar looked around the room at the angry faces of a dozen different species. "That is completely unacceptable. We cannot change our entire legal system for 12 human criminals." "Then we are." "Done talking," Jake said. He turned to General Stone. "Execute the rescue plan." The Vorthics had underestimated their enemies. They thought their prison moon was impossible to attack. It was protected by energy shields, automated defense systems, and a fleet of guard ships. No one had ever successfully broken into a Vorthok, maximum security prison, but they had never faced an alliance like this before. The attack began with the Kithra. Using their information networks, they sent false signals to the Vorthic defense computers. The automated systems began firing at empty space, thinking they were shooting at enemy ships. The Wanderer clan struck next. Their ships appeared out of nowhere, using stealth technology that made them invisible to sensors. They destroyed the guard fleet before the Vorthics even knew they were under attack. The Saurian warships arrived like thunder. Their massive weapons tore through the prisons. Energy shields as if they were made of paper. Within minutes, the prison moon's defenses were completely destroyed, but the most important part of the mission belonged to the humans. Commander Lisa Brooks led a team of 50 soldiers through the smoking ruins of the prison. They moved quickly through the corridors, following directions from Zilani empaths who could sense exactly where the children were located. "Turn left at the next intersection." Dr. Silana's voice came through their communication devices. "I can feel them. They are scared but alive. All 12 are together in one cell." Lisa's heart pounded as she ran through the prison hallways. Behind her, human soldiers carried medical supplies and blankets. They had been planning this rescue for days, thinking about every detail. They found the children in a dark, cold cell deep inside the prison. Amy Johnson was lying on the floor, burning with fever. Danny Kim sat in the corner, staring at nothing. Chris Martinez was trying to take care of the younger children, but he looked thin and exhausted. "We are here to take you home," Lisa said softly as she opened the cell door. The children looked up in shock. For a moment, they could not believe what they were seeing. Then Amy started crying, and soon all of them were crying and reaching out for the soldiers. Are you really here? Chris asked. Are we really going home? Yes, Lisa said, picking up little Danny Kim and wrapping him in a warm blanket. Your parents are waiting for you. The medical team worked quickly to check each child. Amy was the sickest, but they said she would recover with proper treatment. Danny had not spoken since the transfer to the maximum security prison, but he held tightly to Lisa's hand. As they carried the children to the rescue ships. Explosions lit up the sky around them. The Vorthik military was trying to fight back, but they were completely outnumbered. Every species in the galaxy seemed to be shooting at them. The rescue ships reached the Aurora safely. Parents who had not seen their children for 6 months ran through the hallways crying and shouting with joy. Captain Jake Harrison watched as families hugged each other and promised never to be separated again. But this story was not over. Rescue had changed everything in the galaxy. The Vorthik Collective found themselves completely alone. Species that had traded with them for centuries cut all contact. Their economy collapsed within weeks. The Galactic Council was forced to pass new laws protecting children of all species. Never again would a child be imprisoned for an accident. Never again would age be ignored in legal proceedings. Most importantly, humanity had earned something that could not be bought or stolen. They had earned respect. The galaxy had seen that humans would do anything to protect their children, and that other species would help them do it. 3 months later, Amy Johnson was healthy again. Danny Kim had started talking, asking questions about their new planet. Chris Martinez was helping other children learn about the different alien species that had saved them. The Aurora continued its journey to their new home, but now it was not alone. Ships from a dozen different species traveled with them, all part of an alliance that had been born from the need to protect 12 human children. In his final log entry about the incident, Captain Jake Harrison wrote, "Today I learned that the universe is not as cold and empty as it sometimes seems. When children are in danger, good people from every species will come together to help. This gives me hope for our future among the stars."